What's cracking, people? It's your baby mama's favorite cousin Taw. And today we have a conversation that I have been dying to have. I have been putting pieces together so that we can have this conversation based on multiple client consultations that I've had over a series of years. I would say a series of months, but no, it's a series of years. And the conversation surrounding what actually happens when a quote unquote nerd wins. Now, there's a video I'll try to pull up that this is kind of impromptu, but there was this guy who was a comedian. He is a comedian famous for his definition of what a nerd, geek, or a what there's a third one here. A nerd, geek, and hold on, let me pull that up. Let me see, nerd, comedian. While everybody pulls in, shout yourself out. Definitely shout out where you're from, because we are going to have an international conversation today. Today we are going to be discussing what happens when nerds actually win. And what I mean in this context is that when we define what it means for you to win, and this is based on, like I said, various consultations that I've had with guys from all over the world. Today, we're going to focus on a particular consultation that I had with a gentleman from the UK. Okay. And let's see if I can pull up this video here, because it's hilarious, but it does get the job done in terms of defining what a nerd is. While I look for that, shout out to the early arrivers. Let's see, who do we have? Truth Sayer, salute to the Master Cousin T and the chat.
What's crabbing, twin?
Absolutely. His Holiness, how we doing?
What's crabbing, twin?
Trista Fitness, absolutely. Shout out to you. Shout out to you and all your fans that you got at the gym, that you train at, working everybody out. That's what's up. O'Shea White.
What's crabbing, twin?
How you feeling? So basically, and let me pull this up, because you know how I like a good slide presentation. Basically, over the course of multiple conversations that I've had with clients who are self-professed nerds. Let's be clear about this. All right. There are those who self-identify as nerds. There are no two ways about it. They are into, specific pursuits that are not on the beaten path. It's not mainstream. It's not very popular. They admit to having a sort of level of alternative social development. Let me put it that way. let me say it like that. And basically, their interest in having consultations with a seduction coach in particular. And let me be clear. Give me 2 seconds. When a man elects for a seduction coach, of course, he's looking for a dating coach. Of course, he's looking for the type of coach who brings accountability to the interaction. But specifically, when we talk about seduction, we are talking about instructions, lessons, tools, systems, and strategies that are specifically tuned towards going from hello to the pillow. Okay, in that progression. So whereas a standard game coach would be into technique and going over, your positives and negatives, what you can address, maybe socially, how you present physically with your wardrobe, what is your approach style, things of that nature. I'm more a specialist. I'm like, this is like sniper school, okay? when you elect for a seduction coach, you're entering the Rangers. All right, you're entering the Ranger school of coaching. And basically, over the course of my experiences coaching self professed nerds, this interesting phenomena kept repeating itself. And like I said, for tonight's conversation, we're going to focus in on a particular coaching client from the UK that we will call Nigel. Obviously, this is not this is not the client. We maintain anonymity here out of respect to privacy. This gentleman is simply a model. He's just a stand-in. Okay. But what Nigel wanted to understand and appreciate was how to apply this thing that we refer to as foundational game. And Nigel was not the first case of someone coming from a completely different country, a completely different social structure. Now, granted, this is a part of the Western world. However, full disclosure, Nigel was of or is of Arab descent. So he was raised in a somewhat traditional Muslim household. You see, we go into the background of a person when we're setting up the pre-consultation questionnaire. Anybody who has elected for coaching with me understands and appreciates that before we even get started, before we even lock down the time, obviously you're going to submit your deposit, you're going to submit that, but I immediately send this out to you. I need to understand what region you're from. I need to understand some things about your current situation. And so I have those clients who elect for services complete this particular form. Now, there's more to this form underneath, but I keep that, I cut that off because, they're proprietary sort of statements underneath this final question. So I need to know where a person's coming from. I need to know something about their current life situation, how they rate themselves, and their lifestyle elements overall, right? Just so that I can get a sense of where they are. And the number one question, the most important question, is the bottom question. You see, that question is, what would you be willing to sacrifice in order to improve your current situation? Money, energy, time, relationships, or all of the above. Now, needless to say, the majority of the clients select all of the above. And that's understandable because we're talking about improvement. We're talking about affecting positive changes and implementing structures and strategies into their existing lifestyle elements so that they can take how they interact with the type of women that they desire to acquire from just the fantasy space, from just flipping through social media and wanting to have organic interactions with women. Now, the words that I'm using right now are words that come up or have come up in actual sessions. Because let's be honest. It's simple. And it is sort of a default, as we'll see going forward, and from a lot of background internationally, to default to the transaction. And anybody who has spent time in this space know that we prioritize the exchange over the transaction. The transaction being pay to play, right? Presenting a $500 dinner just so that you can have access to her presence. Showering her with gifts, cards, and trinkets as a show of affection and intention, right? Even before you've had an opportunity to sit down in a quiet space, an intimate space, or even a public space to really get an understanding of who it is you desire to acquire a particular dynamic with, whether or not that dynamic is an exchange of information, an exchange of experiences, and more importantly, an exchange of orgasms. Let's be honest, right? And so the exchange, as opposed to the transaction, has to do with you being able to present your value add instead of resources, instead of trinkets, instead of material possessions, symbols or shows or displays of your resources, your wealth, your status, or what have you, which are external representations of the trappings, the sort of suggestion of her lifestyle upgrade, were she to choose to be in your presence. That's very different. And having this conversation with Nigel revealed a lot about the various philosophies that men from international spaces bring to the mating, dating, and relating landscape. Shout out to Lou. What's up, Lou? Good to have you with us. Absolutely. Absolutely. And so before we really dive into this, I want to cover this second aspect to what those who elect for coaching sessions should look forward to. Now, we've gone over the pre-consultation questionnaire. This is the post-consultation recap. Well, this is this is a select portion of it. The recap can go anywhere from 2 pages to 6 pages of information that we disseminated over the course of our session, depending on what you elected to have: 1 hour, 2 hours, or multiple interactions, so that we can really get to the core of what your challenges are, what your barriers are, what your blockages are, what has come up in your past experiences that present a challenge for your ability to go from hello to the pillow today, right now, this moment, in terms of who you are and who you are presenting to the type of woman or women that you desire to acquire in exchange with. Now, over the course of the conversation with Nigel, he kept bringing up the elements within his culture that have to do with shows of competence, shows of or displays of resources, or an ability to present a dowry or a bride price. Now, follow me through this portion of it, because what was revealed over the course of multiple sessions with international clients was that their traditions, their cultural traditions, ascribed to the practice of dowry presentations and or bride prices. And this was the case for European clients. This happens in India, even though they're apparently working on trying to abolish that system there. It applies to Asian clients, big over in China, bride prices, you see? And especially in sections in countries in Africa, the Congo, Sudan, Nigeria, Ghana. There's so many places and spaces throughout the world that currently practice this tradition in some way or another. Obviously, it varies based on the cultural tradition. Shout out to His Holiness. He says betrothal. Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Arranged marriages. So when we talk about the exchange over the transaction. This is a challenging concept for some men to integrate into their philosophy, because we are having a conversation, we are having sessions, we are unpacking what exists in the environment, the social environment from which they come from, a lot of which are shifting. Those environments are shifting as their societies modernize. I'm using air quotes with that for people who are listening. As their societies modernize and they move towards a capitalist model, in a sort of progressive model of governance, a lot of these traditional ways of approaching and I can't even say dating. I have to say mating and relating. Okay. I think dating is a primarily Western concept, especially having conversations with gentlemen from other regions of the planet. But one of the most important things that uh, came across in a conversation with Nigel, because he kept asking, why is it that specifically Black American men are all about the mouthpiece? You can imagine how that conversation went. Why are you so fixated on having a mouthpiece? Why are you so fixated on how you look, how your grooming, what your haircut is like? Not showering a woman with gifts and attention before you even show up. And I had to be honest. I had to break it down to him really quick. And this is one of those instances in which uh, I have the opportunity to reveal what's at the core of a cultural philosophy, and to show the contrast between how we operate and how others throughout the world basically operate. So again, Nigel is under the impression, he's under the cultural tradition of the bride price, or in the Muslim culture, the mahar, right? Those who speak Arabic, let me know. Correct me in the comments if I got that right. MAHR, mahar, right? Basically, the equivalent of a bride price. And so he's asking, why is it that Americans, especially Black American men, why do we focus on game? Why do we focus on mouthpiece? Why do we focus on our presentation so much? And I simply had to respond respectfully, is that we fought an entire war, okay, to abolish buying and selling people. Okay. So, with all due respect, our attitude towards the mating, dating, and relating landscape has to do with, or it comes from, the challenges that our ancestors faced in their efforts to form bonds, in their efforts to form families, in their efforts to make sense of the then landscape. So when you fight a war, an entire war, the Civil War, based on the ideal and the principle of freedom, of the ability to exist in a nation, in a culture, in an environment where people are not being bought and sold, the idea of a dowry or a bride price is foreign. It doesn't resonate, you see? And so in our culture, our focus once again is on our presentation. Our focus once again is on how we show up. Our focus is on how we internally understand and appreciate who we are. And we build that up so that we're presenting truth. Because the number one axiom in this thing that we refer to as foundational game is keep it real. You see, not how much does it cost or how much can I pay? Shout out to Damien. Welcome in. We appreciate that.
Twin?
He says, I just study game for real. Absolutely. Absolutely. Our central axiom is not, how much does it cost? Or, it ain't tricking if you got it, even though that was a song. I tell people that was a joke. That started off as a joke, all right, at the club. But one of the most important takeaways in this conversation about what happens when nerds win is, firstly, nerds as well as anyone else, let me put it that way, have to go within in order to achieve that understanding and the level of awareness that puts you in position to be able to offer who you truly are. Because when we talk about this thing called foundational game, we are not offering cows. We're not offering property. We're not offering riches. We are offering something that's invaluable. We're offering something that's intangible. We're offering something that is beyond that which can be bought and or sold. You see? We are offering the opportunity for a woman to experience that which brings satisfaction. You see? Shout out to Trisha Fitness. Absolutely. We offer ourselves, and that is who we get to the core of over the course of the consultation sessions. You see? When we talk about this thing that we refer to as foundational game, we have to appreciate how it evolves a person, especially someone who is used to being an introvert, who's used to being a programmer, who's used to being a researcher in quiet spaces where you don't have much human contact or human interaction. And so to reach out to a person is tough. Nerds have challenges that those of us who are athletes, those of us who are musicians, artists, fashionable people, right? Those of us who knew how to put that shit on, right? At an early age. Basically, those of us who are used to engaging in social spaces don't necessarily have these hangups or these challenges or these barriers to getting to that position of not only investigating and exploring so that we can discover who we truly are, but also understanding and appreciating how to present that value proposition to the type of woman that we desire to acquire an exchange with. You see? Shout out to Joe Blast. We appreciate you showing up. Yes, indeed. Respect to my brother, cousin T. Absolutely. Lou from I think I shouted you out before, right?
What's poppin', twin?
Those who took her through there. Absolutely.
Take me through that. Take me through that.
And when we talk about the developmental stages of a man's journey, it doesn't necessarily have to include intimacy. The more important elements on that path have to do with who you are. Because you are not your career, you are not your vocation, you are not the costume that you put on at BlurredCon, okay? You're not Yu-Gi-Oh! Or whatever the popular costume is, you see? But when we are talking about what happens when a nerd wins, and let's be clear, for the sake of this conversation, we're going to say that the win for the nerd is to achieve access to intimacy via the exchange, meaning that a man who was typically deemed as socially awkward, socially introverted, you see, socially underdeveloped. Through coaching, through tutelage, through mentorship, has developed the ability to introduce himself, has developed the ability to present his value add, which is his ability to take a woman on an experience, take a woman to a space of intimacy, but ultimately provide that thing that we as practitioners, players, Max and OGs do on the regular. And that is deliver satisfaction. You see? So we'll establish that. We'll establish that as the floor for the win for a nerd. Shout out to Damien.
What's poppin', twin?
You said a little bit of Yu-Gi-Oh over here. Hey, nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with a little new Yu-Gi-Oh. Listen, if we have current nerds or former nerds in the chat, shout yourself out and shout out your cosplaying character. All right, for the sake of the chat for tonight. All right, shout out yourself if you are a recovering nerd or current nerd, and what's your cosplay character. All right, we got Yu-Gi-Oh so far. What else do we got? But moving forward with this conversation, once a man has achieved the ability to engage with a woman via the exchange, not the transaction, but via the exchange, meaning he has the ability to present her with the opportunity for an exchange of experiences, an exchange of information, and of course, an exchange of orgasms. You see? Then he has to sit with himself. He has to now reconcile what has happened, because this is a new experience for him. He's not used to entertaining this space of intimacy that is authentic, the space of intimacy that is organic, the space of intimacy that she is excited to be with him. You see? All right, Guy Colbert.
What's poppin', twin?
You got to help me out with that one. All right. Is that an anime? Right? Yeah. All right. Shout out to you. I'm going to assume that that's an anime that people use for cosplaying. Absolutely. Salute to that. And so on the other side of the experience of a woman's organic desire for you, now we get to unpack what that's like for certain men. All right. We'll keep using the nerd tag. All right. We'll just say for Nigel. For Nigel, after he experienced intimacy via his ability to present a value add to the type of woman that he desired to share space with, right? Dragon Ball Z, that is a classic one, right? That's Goku's attack from Dragon Ball Z. Okay, gotcha. Yep. All right. Yeah, I appreciate that. And for a lot of men who have never experienced organic desire from a woman, it is a moment in his development that sits him down. You see? We pull that out, we get that down for just a sec, because we have to understand what it's like to unpack this. And of course, I'm changing information to protect the privacy of the consulting client. But the follow-up after an encounter that had to do with a woman showing true desire for who he is. You see, first we had to get him to the point to whereas he can describe who he is so that he understands, so he gets to know himself. You see, not making up these lines to say, hey, I'm this, I'm that, and I'm the third, I can do whatever it takes to to make your day or to highlight aspects of your world that you've never seen before. Beyond all that, who are you and what do you bring to the exchange? Not the transaction, but what do you bring to the exchange naturally and organically? Getting a man who's not used to being able to present that is one thing. Getting him to the interaction at a bar, you see, at a pool hall, maybe a movie, coffee, whatever, so that he can be face to face with this woman. Whether they met online, whether they met at the library, whether they met at a bus stop, whether they met at the airport, wherever they met organically. Getting him to that point where he's face to face with a physical female that he did not have to buy, that he did not have to rent, that he did not have to enter into the transaction to make happen. You see, that's a whole new experience for a lot of men. And that's why getting with a practitioner, a player, an OG, a coach of this thing that we call foundational game is essential, especially now when we talk about how the landscape is shifting, not only domestically here in the States or in the Western world, but internationally. Traditions are evolving, you see, simply because he elected to have the coaching and the tutelage of an American, let's be clear, a foundational Black American coach in this thing that we call foundational game does not negate or make him turn his back on the years and years, the centuries of traditions that his family brought him up in. All this does is simply expand his awareness and evolves his overall philosophy personally. You see, he'll always have the philosophy of his people in his mind. He'll always adhere to the customs and traditions of the environment in which he finds himself over there in the UK. Salute to the UK. However, now, having experienced a taste of the reality of the exchange, he'll never be the same. He, like others who have successfully followed the coursework, successfully followed the strategies that we put together, all the way to completion, this is why we call it a win, will never be the same because they got to experience that thing that we call life. And that is invaluable. That can't be bought. For a man who is embodied, who is aware of his presence in the world, to be able to look at the type of woman who he's attracted to, who he's drawn to. And I love you. You know, I love this practice. I love this exercise that we do. When I have the coaching client go into his For You page, right? Many of you may be familiar with this exercise that I perform. I say, pull up your IG. If you don't have IG, pull up Facebook. If you don't have Facebook, pull up Google Images, okay? What we are going to do, we're going to look at the Miss Universe pageant contestants, all right? You've got hundreds of them from around the world. This is the Miss Universe, all right? Show me who you believe is an 8, 9, and 10. And fortunately, I don't record these conversations because if I could and if I were allowed to play these back, and you see the look on guys' face when they're face to face, even just from a screen perspective of an 8, 9, or a 10 that they chose, be it from Kenya, be it from Namibia, be it from Colombia, be it from Venezuela, be it from Thailand. This beauty can come from anywhere that they choose. But now they're face to face with that beauty. And now the lesson begins. Now what I need you to do is to describe her. Describe her to me, right? That's a whole other level of approach to appreciating what's happening. What is happening internally? Because a lot of men pause when we get to that part of the exercise. You see? Shout out to Steadfast Will. Absolutely. Salute to you, says former, future Gohan, DBZ, Dragon Ball Z, and Dark Knight DC, and Daredevil Marvel. Absolutely. Salute to you. What's up, Kenneth? Kenneth Young, absolutely. Greetings to Cousin T-Taw in the chat. Absolutely. And so the reason why we practice this particular exercise is to get a man his thought process together under pressure, you see? Because one of the brilliant aspects of being alive as a man is our testosterone, you see? And what an exercise like that does, because we are visual creatures, is when we even see an 8, 9, or 10, something happens, right? Our body starts to react, starts to release all these chemicals. Hopefully, if everything's working properly, right? We start to release all these chemicals, and that's good. We should be releasing these chemicals. These hormones should start moving to drive us. That's called a human driver, right? Towards the target, towards the goal of being in the presence of that 8, 9, or 10. Now, I'm just using 8, 9, and 10 as just a standard example of a beautiful woman, okay? And so when the student snaps himself into reality and says, okay, let me start describing what I'm seeing as a part of this lesson, most men start using the filter of their social training. And most guys, the first time through it, they say, well, she looks like she is well off. She looks like she comes from a wealthy family. She's on a yacht, and I'm like, that's not how you do it. If you are in person and you are describing this young lady, the first thing that you need to understand when we talk about this thing called foundational game is that you are describing the person and not the social landscape and not the social environment. So she's 5'5", right? 5'7". She's wearing a dress, plunging neckline, right? How's her body? What color are her eyes? What color is her hair? Right? Blonde, brunette? Is it short? Is it long? These are the things that I need you to describe when you're looking at this person, because I need you to be able to make the image that you see on your screen real. You see? Because when you can make that image real, then you can put yourself in position. This is how we train. This is how we get the repetitions up mentally. And so by the time they're actually in the presence of an actual woman, they're used to being able to point out something that's interesting about her. Oh, I see you got that necklace on. Where'd you get that from? That's interesting. Let's see. That's kind of heavy. Uh-oh, you brought the good stuff out. Well, I am worth it. So listen,
he is I and I am him.
I am worth it. I am him. So, tell me more about yourself, right? Now you're in there. Now you're having the conversation that will lead to the presentation and the offer and the opportunity of the exchange. This is just a sample of what we do as coaches. You see, we go from hello to the pillow, but we have to start with you. Who are you? What is your background? Can you speak to that? Can you confidently say who you are socially, culturally, nationally? And then unpack what your attributes are. You see? How does your light shine as a man? What is your presence? What's your wisdom? How is your capacity for leadership, right? And what is it that you look forward to experiencing with that woman who's seated across from you with that grande latte with your cheap ass? I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. Coffee dates are wonderful. They're absolutely fine. Martini dates are better, but coffee dates are wonderful. She's sipping her grande latte, and you're looking at her, you're drinking her in, you're understanding and appreciating what it is that's happening in the moment. Now we've moved beyond that space. Let's go back to Nigel. All right. Everybody go back to Nigel. You see? Shout out to Immortals. He says,
What's poppin', twin?
needs to be staying focused. Absolutely. Damien
What's poppin', twin?
says she got to have tone snatch waist. G cups, natural to get me in my case. That's what's up. Damien, shout out where you're from. Where are you from, Damien Mucho? So back to Nigel. He's on the other side of the win. All right. He got the experience. He had the opportunity to experience a woman's organic and natural attraction to him. And he took her from hello to the pillow. So he got the win. Now he is sitting with himself. Because guess what? He doesn't know what to do next. Believe it or not, when most people, especially younger men, and when I say younger, I mean, between the ages of 19 and 26, when they experience authentic desire from a woman, when they're in that space of intimacy, however it went, it could have lasted 30 seconds or 30 minutes or 3 hours. On the other side is a man who is never going to be the same, because that experience transitioned him from desiring or presenting or leading with the transaction into the space of expecting, enjoying, and anticipating the exchange. You see? Especially when we talk about international men from various backgrounds who are used to traditionally anticipating presenting a bride price, anticipating presenting a dowry, anticipating having to come up with this financial incentive for the hand or the heart of a woman. You see? And so what really is happening is the adjustment of a mindset. And like I said, once they've experienced the exchange, the most important takeaway of this conversation that I want everybody to appreciate is that the fantasy of the value of the transaction is destroyed. You see? Damien says, from South Jersey, the Italian woman be having it all. All right, that's what's up. Appreciate that. Shout out to you, Immortals.
What's poppin', twin?
Immortal says, a lot of nerds are late bloomers. They experience success with women later in life. Now, Immortals, I'm going to ask you to define success. What is success in your opinion and in your experience? What is success with women? Because that is a broad term. Here we like to get specific. When we talk about the win, myself and Ron Wills had a conversation dedicated to what it means to win. You see? What does it mean to win? We have to define what the win is. Is it to win the moment, right? To be able to get yourself in the presence of the type of woman that you desire to acquire? That's a win. That's to win the moment. Is a win meaning to win the day, meaning that you accomplished everything that's on your agenda? Is the win meaning, in the case of Nigel, experiencing an organic exchange of desire, You see, Immortals says having access slash options. Now, I'm going to take it one step further, Immortals. Do you believe, and it's okay, this is a safe space. You can be honest from your opinion and your experience. Do you believe that having access slash options has to do with your status, your money, your status, your wealth? Or does having access slash options mean that you are the type of man who can generate access? You're the type of man who looks at the landscape and reveals his options for intimacy. Which one is you? Well, which one of those scenarios are you referring to? Shout out to Damien. He says, success to me is when she's showing love, buying me food. Oh, I enjoy that. I enjoy being bought a good meal. Frequent smecks. She's looking good. All fun side. Yes, indeed. That's a wonderful successful event. That is definitely a win. And what I really want to make sure that we impress upon those who are listening is to, one, like, share, subscribe, forward this conversation, of course, to someone who you know can benefit from this ism. And also, two, bless the Taw Tabernacle that's scrolling at the bottom of your screen, and or show love via a super chat. This is your opportunity to ask me any game related question, and also share your thoughts on what it means to be a nerd who wins. Because one of the things that I eventually have to confront with clients who were traditionally socially underdeveloped and or socially awkward is what happens when they get the thing that we have been working towards. Because now we have to shift their entire understanding of man gets woman. We have to shift and expand and adjust their entire understanding of mating, dating, and relating. Because now I have to impress upon the Nigels of the world that simply because you enjoyed this win of the exchange of intimacy does not mean that she is the one. Okay. It does not mean that she is your forever person. And that is frightening to a lot of people. That is scary as hell, because a lot of men don't know what's on the other side of intimacy. A lot of men don't understand and can't appreciate what's on the other side of the dynamic of the exchange. Because let's be clear, especially when men are used to the transaction. Give me 2 seconds. Shout out to Steadfast Will. He says the success for the nerd late bloomer is truly understanding intimacy. Yes. These are facts. These are facts. Absolutely. What are you taking away from the experience? But like I was saying, for the men who have experienced the transaction, let's be clear. Pay for play. That is what I'm drilling the transaction down to. Pay for play. They know what's on the other side of the transaction. Nothing. You see? Nothing is on the other side of the transaction. You may have had physical interaction. You may have had intercourse. You may have experienced fellatio. You may have experienced crazy whipped cream, all types of interesting things that you paid for that evening. But what you did not experience was an authentic, desirous engagement in which you exchanged true energy. Now, like I said, we're going to have a conversation that covers words that are intangibles, right? Words like presence, words like spirit, words like energy. You see, those are those intangible words that people get hung up on. What does that mean? When you are engaging in the exchange as opposed to the transaction, the other side of the exchange is fulfillment. You have fulfilled the exchange of her feminine energy for your masculine energy. But on the other side of the transaction is nothing. Yes, you've gotten your temporary gratification. You got your roll out. You got that nut. Congratulations. You paid for it. And on the other side of it is emptiness. Because you have to acknowledge that this was not an organic experience. You did not experience the fundamental element of the human exchange. You see? That expression of your humanity was cut off due to the transaction. Because you have to recognize and reconcile that that woman would not have put herself in your presence, let alone given you access to her in that manner without the presence of the transaction. And so that creates a split between who you truly are and who you paid to be. You see, with the transaction, you are buying into, like I said, the fantasy, which is the performance of an illusion. Whereas with the exchange, you are presenting who you truly are and receiving who she truly is in exchange. You see, very, very different. Very different. You walk away from that exchange either with the mindset to expand that dynamic, meaning see her again, do more things, right? Enter into the vetting process or whatever you choose to do. But you also walk away fulfilled because you are tapping into something that's primal. You tapped into your primal nature, but you also tapped into the feminine primal nature, that desire, that burning intimacy. And you got to exist in that moment where everything in your body, everything that you were made of, every molecule got to be awakened. That's what we refer to as aliveness. Let's be clear. Shout out to Immortals. We got a response. He says, physical fitness / financial status / experience with women, a man can develop in many ways over the years. That's true. Absolutely. Yes, he can. And so as we round up to the end of what Nigel experienced, let's be clear. The way that we reconciled what happened and the reality of how he felt after the win is what I want to make sure that people take away. Anybody beyond just the nerds, right? Beyond just the nerds, everybody within the sound of my voice, I want you to make sure that you take away from what Nigel experienced as a nerd winning, meaning getting organic desire from a woman that he desired in the form of intimacy. That's what I'm counting as the win. On the other side, he got to learn more about himself. He got to experience who he truly is when he's allowed to exist in the moment of the exchange. You see, that is an experience that is priceless. And that is what we offer as coaches, mentors, and teachers of this thing that we call foundational game. So everybody who doesn't have your copy of the Seduction Scriptures, make sure that you grab your copy of the Seduction Scriptures. You see, sub to the Patreon because we go deeper over there. Forward this conversation to someone who you know can benefit from the exchange. You see? Shout out to Pharaoh.
What's poppin', twin?
Yes, indeed. Tristan Fitness says he found out he's enough. Yes, indeed. These are facts. These are facts. And when a man comes to that realization, when a man finds himself within the exchange, and you discover that the summary of who you are, your presence, your wisdom, your leadership, the truth of your existence is enough to qualify you for the exchange of intimacy with the type of woman that you're attracted to. That is true liberation. You see? That is the spirit, you see, of foundational gain. Liberation, freedom, truth, authenticity, the realness of the human experience. You see, there is nothing that we frown upon or that we thumbs down about traditions, international traditions. You see? However, when we talk about foundational gain, it comes from a space of the abolishment of the transaction. You see? So the next time you're having a conversation with a man who professes to the gospel of ism, here we go. When he talks about the truth of foundational gain, when he talks about having a mouthpiece, when he is proud of being able to present his value add to the world, understand that he's coming from the space of a people who have a history of seeking out their humanity, of fighting for their ability to express our humanity. You see, that is the fundamental element of foundational gain. That is why we promote it so much over the transaction. That is why we count it as a win to have an organic experience. That is why we count it as a win to keep it real. You see? Definitely, Will. It is the true exchange because it is born through liberation. And as our ancestors helped to liberate ourselves in that historical war, the philosophy moves forward in how we present ourselves today. Foundational gain has the ability to liberate your true self. You see? People hide behind the transaction. People can hide behind tradition. But what you cannot hide is the truth. You cannot hide from who you truly are as a person, as a present embodied human being. You cannot hide what is real. As always, this is your man, Cousin T, aka the Alpha Wingman, saying, stay sharp and mission focused. Later.